I was wondering, Blue Jay fans, how many times have the Toronto Blue Jays broken your heart? It's time to confess while enjoying the views from the On Fek Circle, streaming to Blue Jays fans everywhere every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Jays from the Couch YouTube channel. You can laugh a little while thinking a lot about baseball from a Blue Jays point of view. And we aren't just talking at you. This is a baseball conversation, so share your questions and comments during the live show in the comment sections on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and throughout the week. We always go back and check on a regular basis. This program is joined on the Jays from the Couch YouTube channel by Sunny Side of the Dome, hosted by Jays from the Couch writer and analyst Karen Suter. That goes live Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Karen is the voice of the diehard Blue Jays fan. The Jays from the Couch radio podcast, The Mothership, streams live Mondays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on your YouTube channel, the Jays from the Couch Facebook page, and on Twitter at Jays from Couch. Senior editor and Jays from the Couch founder Shaun Doyle creates and moderates Blue Jays Talk for All with Blue Jays players, beat writers, out-of-town analysts, and fellow Couchers such as myself and Karen Suter. Never miss our fake Blue Jays news segments. You can download episodes anywhere you find your podcasts. I am the madman across the border. The Gilbert Gottfried, if you will, of Blue Jays podcast and YouTube channel shows. The Fekless Wonder, Steve Fek. Thanks for joining for another episode of this little madcap misadventure. If you look at the visual, whenever I'm doing, specifically, the On Fek Circle, it always seems a little bit out of kilter. And somebody pointed that out to me kind of sheepishly, thinking they were maybe insulting me. It's done on purpose. I mean, part of it's, I don't know if you remember the old original Batman TV series, and everything was kind of slanted to one side. So when you're in the Penguin's lair or the Joker's headquarters or whatever, it was always a little bit of out of kilter. When you're looking out from the On Fek Circle, and those of you that have played baseball or softball at whatever level it is, things never quite look like you would if you were sitting in the seats and the stands. You don't have a direct view, but you kind of have a off-center kind of view of what's going on. So even when you're looking out at the pitcher from the on-deck circle, you're not necessarily getting a TV quality view of what the pitcher's doing, but that's what this program kind of does. Everything that I will share or opine or joke about, I in my heart 100% believe it. I don't just say things for the sake of saying them. But I admit, okay, I'm a couple cards short of a full deck. And you can argue that even if I had 52 cards, there's a lot of jokers mixed in. Okay, I admit, okay, I am not your typical Blue Jays commentator, analyst, whatever tag you want to put on us. So I'd kind of like that off-center kind of view that you're looking at while you're watching it on the YouTube channel or on Facebook or on the Twitter feed, because I want you to know, okay, you're not getting the typical, okay, camera one, you're looking ahead. It's a little bit out of kilter. So I'm preparing you, if this is the first time you've ever turned into the show, that's what you can expect going forward. And if you've already turned in, maybe it all makes a little bit more sense for you now. I have a couple of ceremonial first pitches before I get to the primary topic tonight. We also have a Blue Jays bedtime story that I postponed from last week. It was so interesting, and we had so much engagement talking about my idea of having to move Vladimir Guerrero Jr. off first base right now for safety and injury concerns. I didn't want to shortchange, that segment or a bedtime story, Blue Jays bedtime story. So we're going to have one a little bit later in the show. But the first ceremonial first pitch is, please do consider joining us here at Jays from the Couch in our support to try to raise awareness, raise funds for research, for patients, day-to-day use, getting the doctor's appointments, wheelchairs, helping the family with expenses. If you go to our website, which is www.jasonthecouch.com, down in the corner, after you've read through, the plethora of terrific articles, you'll see sections where you can either go directly to our merchandise shop, our Redbubble shop, and there's a shirt over my right shoulder as you're viewing it. They've got all kind of coffee mugs and tumblers and clocks and pillows and 3/4 long sleeve, you name it, hoodies, they've got it. 100% of the proceeds, again, I keep saying proceeds, of the profits of any purchase that you make goes directly to ALS Canada. That is part of our campaign. You also have an area on the website where you can go make your tax deductible, if you choose to make it tax deductible, donation to ALS Canada. Baseball, for better or worse, has a direct connection to amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is in the common vernacular known as Lou Gehrig's disease. That is what felled a terrific, vibrant, strong athlete in the prime of his career. And it's been around forever, but that really brought it into the national and international focus. So please do support us and help us help ALS Canada find a cure, or at least find a treatment, because none really exist to improve quality of life for people stricken with ALS. While you're at the website, you should check out the daily minor league updates. I mean, there's all kind of terrific articles. Now, I'm not an analytics guy. It really grates me when people automatically bring up weighted runs created plus or expected this or whatever. But we have writers like Bob Ritchie and Jim Scott that really do a great job incorporating those numbers and helping you understand why this number is important. Whether you agree or not. I mean, I don't agree, but I love reading the articles because I'm always learning something. So you have those kind of articles. We have, player analysis. I do something called the Week in Preview that comes out on Mondays, where I kind of look ahead at the Blue Jay schedules that week, pick out little things. But the daily minor league recap is just must read. Even if you're not a Blue Jay fan, I don't know why you'd be putting up with me if you're not a Blue Jays fan, but it's just fascinating. Not only does Ryan Mueller talk about the top prospects, but he really recaps every game and kind of brings to your attention outstanding performances and guys to watch throughout the minor league system, because you never know who potentially could be a future Blue Jay. And coming up on this week's podcast, next Monday, Jason the Couch Radio Podcast, Ryan's going to be on to answer your questions, bring you up to date as to what's happening at the various levels. I recommend you tune in, and of course, do a daily pilgrimage to jasonthecouch.com. Before I get started, if you have any questions, comments, we're going to be talking about the times that the Blue Jays may have broken your heart during the course of your fandom. And I am old enough to remember baseball before there were Toronto Blue Jays. So I've run the gamut from 1977 forward. I run that gamut. I'm aware of what's going on. I've scoured those box scores and standings and transactions. I've witnessed it all. So if you have a particular moment that either I don't mention or don't get to, or that you would like to share saying, but this really broke my heart, on the YouTube channels we stream live, on Facebook, on Twitter, put in your comment. Our editor and founder, Shaun Doyle, is behind the scenes. He will take your questions, get them up as quickly as we can as they pertain to the topic. And if you want to just poke fun of me, even if we don't get it on the air, because Shaun's a nice guy, I think he prefers to edit those things out. It's okay. I go back and actually read them, and I will reply to you. I said this a million times. I don't care if you call me a dope. Just explain to me why I'm a dope. Okay? So, as you probably notice, I have what was the then New Jersey Nets cap on. I have a Cleveland Barons hockey t-shirt, and behind me you can see Montreal Expos cap. There's even an Atlanta Flames cap. They weren't always in Calgary, folks. They started in Atlanta. And this idea popped in my head when the Nets, and I should know better, got swept by the Celtics in their, opening round playoff series. A continuing litany of heartbreaks being a Nets fan. I grew up in the New York, New Jersey area. I remember taking multiple trains and buses out to Long Island when they were in the ABA, the late great ABA. And since they left the ABA and the leagues merged, the Nets have broken my heart pretty much every year. They found a different way to do it. They absolutely broke my heart when they left New Jersey. They were the New Jersey Nets for years, moved to Brooklyn. They've lost a couple of NBA finals. Most times they didn't even sniff the playoffs. They've found ways to lose. They drafted Dwayne Pearl Washington in the first round, first overall pick. All universe college basketball player. Somehow Dwayne found a way to put on 20, 30 pounds and just lose all the magic. I think if he had been traded at some point, he would have been an all-star or Hall of Famer on a different roster. There's something about the Nets. We all know the Expos got screwed over by Major League Baseball and Jeffrey Loria, breaking the hearts of fans across Canada and really across the United States too. They were a very popular team. And for those of you that don't remember, the Cleveland Barons actually existed for 2 years. And they were years that I was attending college in Pittsburgh. So I was able to travel up. I don't want to call it travel to Cleveland because they played out way in the middle of farm country in Ohio, about 45 minutes to an hour west of Cleveland, to go see them play. My favorite hockey player of all time, Jules Malache, played for the Barons. Dennis Marouk, terrific player. Not much else that you could say was great. But when they folded, fashionably late, glad to make it. Glad you're here, Sarah. Sarah's a regular contributor to the podcast. My show, Karen's show, is on Thursday. Thank you for checking in. So I was thinking about, baseball's my true passion. How many times my team, the Toronto Blue Jays, have broken my heart. Now, again, because I was growing up younger, there were no Toronto Blue Jays, so that was the Red Sox. I got indoctrinated by being a Red Sox fan. You have the big highs of Fisk, hooking that home run around the foul pole and waving it, making sure it stayed fair. I also remember in 1978, fly ball to left, Yastrzemski goes back, home run, Bucky Dent. I remember the Bucky F. Dent home run with the Red Sox. So I'm used to heartache with as far as that goes. But the Blue Jays, despite their many successes on the field, at least for me, have been equally as frustrating as being a Cubs fan or a Red Sox fan. Through the years, there are just things that were truly heartbreaking that you got so excited, it truly broke your heart. The reason I wanted to bring it up this week is the excitement around this team. Last night's game was terrific. Barrios was wonderful, through the first 7 innings or so that he pitched. Red Sox came back, tied the game at 2. Bo hits a walk-off grand slam. There's been a bunch of almost like that already. And universally, the Blue Jays are looked at certainly as a playoff team, if not an AL pennant contender. And that's great. Except, in order to really enjoy what is hopefully a great series of highs throughout the 2022 season, you have to still stay guarded so that you don't have blinders on and don't see potential issues, so that when you're talking with your fellow fans or you're sending something out on social media or you're checking in on this show or the podcast, you realize that there could be some dangers and traps there lying. You don't want to get too carried away, just in case they would break your heart. So I thought it would be kind of fun, now that I've shared my New Jersey / Brooklyn Nets, Cleveland Barons, Montreal Expos tales of sports woe as a fan. I thought it would be fun to talk about my 5. There's really 5. So fans of High Fidelity, the movie and the book, the top 5 heartbreaks the Blue Jays have inflicted upon the Fekless Wonder. And before I get too far into that, heartbreak may seem too dramatic, but for a diehard fan of any sport, you see it in Europe with soccer, and in South America in soccer, in Canada it's hockey, Russia and Eastern Europe, hockey is a big thing. Also, team handball is a sport that you don't see really here in North America, but it's huge following throughout the EU and throughout Eastern Europe. It's a different circle of hellish torture being a sports fan. I mean, a really 100% invested in your team sports fan. So a lot of times people say, well, heartbreak, okay, that's our first love, a breakup of a marriage or a long-term relationship, the loss of a parent or a friend. Yes, that's a heartbreak. And that is emotional, familial, social heartbreak. But it's a whole circle of hell for sports fans. Like I mean, literally, if you've watched the podcast, when I say something critical about the Blue Jays, and I don't mean to be hurtful, but I'm not smooth. I'm a little more abrasive. You can see it on her face. You can just sense it. It's almost like the air just gets sucked out of all 3 panels of the podcast, because Karen is such a diehard. We tease her saying she's the girl with Blue Jays colored glasses, but I mean, she is. I mean, she's the voice of the fan. That's the kind of heartbreaks that I'm talking about. So I'm going to go from 5 to 1. So I'm going to increase the pain as the show goes on. Number 5 heartbreak occurred in 1985, the year that the Blue Jays won their first AL East title. Best record in the American League. It was just magical, especially for those of us old enough or that were following the team out of the expansion years. Now, admittedly, I was, because of Carl Yastrzemski, I still had 1 foot in Red Sox Nation and 1 foot in Blue Jays Nation. But I vividly remember sitting at Exhibition Stadium through those expansion years. And it wasn't always pretty. It really wasn't. The baseball at times was not good. Yet you had people coming up like Mosby and Barfield and Upshaw and Tony Fernandez. You had Dave Stieb. Honestly, if he had not been up with an expansion era kind of team, I think Steve could have gotten to 300 wins or really, really close, and he would be in the Hall of Fame already. We wouldn't have to be fighting to try to get him in there. But 85 was just pure joy. 84 was great because, yes, they finished 15 games behind the Detroit Tigers. But you have to remember, the Tigers started the year 35-5. From that point in the beginning, mid-May, through the rest of the season, the Blue Jays were playing even with the Tigers. And all of that talent was starting to gel under Bobby Cox. It was just, terrific to see that, but there was no way. They always say, well, you can't win a pennant in April, you can only lose it. Ask the 1984 Blue Jays and fans of the team from the early years if that's not pure bull. The Tigers won that AL East title in the first 6 weeks of the season. To have them have the best record in the AL, get ahead in the playoff series against the Royals, and then lose it, that was a kick in the gut. It's not as painful because, well, they finally got there. And they got there in a relatively short period of time for an expansion team. They started in 77. They were in the playoffs in 85. So, yeah, it hurt. And then Bobby Cox left to go back to Atlanta. And you kind of felt betrayed, and that was hurt too, but okay. I mean, the joy of 85 and watching that team throughout the season far outweighed the gut punch you got in the playoffs. My fourth biggest heartbreak, I can just hear you guys getting ready to moan and complain, was the ersatz firing of Alex Anthopoulos in 2015. Alex Anthopoulos, native Canadian for those that are Canadian Blue Jays fans, took over a team that was just completely in disarray. Gordash had so many missteps. The team was never going to get better under his tutelage, coming off of those 2 World Series championships in 92 and 93. J.P. Ricciardi, when you watch the movie Moneyball, his personality was sort of like an amalgamation of the Jonah Hill character. It was Paul DePodesta, it was Ricciardi, a couple other players. He was supposed to be this wonder child, and oh my God, he just wrecked the Blue Jays. He drafted horribly. He just wrecked the Blue Jays. So Anthopoulos was stepping in, and he had a couple of missteps. He had that massive trade with the Marlins and people going back and forth all the time and some young players not really developing. But 2015, talk about pushing your chips in and making a call to win the AL, to get to the playoffs and potentially win that pennant. Once again, the Royals stepped in, but Anthopoulos did a great job. But even before the playoffs began, Mark Shapiro was hired to replace the retiring Paul Beeston. Shapiro, as is reported, really scolded in his meetings, even before the playoffs started, really scolded Anthopoulos for the traits that he made. And not leaving the farm system. And let me get this out right now. Those that want to come out and continue to spread, talk about Trump's big lie. The other big lie is Alex Anthopoulos did not gut the farm system and set the Blue Jays back multiple years. When you say that, you should use one of those like Looney Tune cartoon voices. Where did they go, George? Which way did he go? Which way did he go? Because that's how dumb you sound. He signed Vladdy Guerrero Jr., Danny Jansen, when Rowdy Tellez was here. There are guys, Baraki, there are guys that were left behind. And many of the prospects that got sent off to get people like David Price didn't really do much for those other teams. So let's get rid of that myth right away. But when Anthopoulos got fired, I knew we were in for a long rebuild, a long haul. And it was painful. And admittedly, I was a little bit jaded with the Shapiro and Atkins team because I lived close enough to Cleveland. I attended enough games. I had friends in the media in Cleveland that were highly critical, as was I, of their handling of their farm system and their teams. They had a couple of really solid chances to go far into playoffs during their time together in Cleveland, and it just never materialized. So, I mean, I had that built-in prejudice, but seeing AA get fired, that broke my heart. And I was thrilled, I have to admit it, I was thrilled when the Braves won the World Championship last year, when they won the World Series. And it should be noted that Alex Anthopoulos has won a World Series before Shapiro and Atkins have. That's just a fact. It's not opinion. He did it. And he did it in a similar way that he did with Toronto. So, third biggest heartbreak, since we're on 2015, another playoff loss to the Royals. And yes, you can say, oh, there was bad umpiring calls, and you can point to all of these things that all tend to happen during the course of a playoff or a course of a baseball season. Given where the Blue Jays were and what Alex Anthopoulos was able to acquire to push them over the top, I mean, very similar to what happened, in Atlanta last year. Maybe not the same caliber of players that he acquired in Atlanta, but he made those kind of chips in kind of moves. That was tough. That was really, really tough. And I think it got harder for me, at least, after Anthopoulos resigned. Fekless Wonder, Anthopoulos resigned. He wasn't fired. He was fired. You can paint it any different way. Alex Anthopoulos was fired. At the very least, he was forced out the door. So it was a double whammy in 2015. The second most heartbreaking moment in Blue Jays history was last year. And it wasn't just because they finished one game out of the playoffs. It was the reasons why they finished one game out of the playoffs. Starting with the offseason, and it was really my first full year with Jays from the Couch, because I kind of jumped in during the 2020 pandemic thinking the Blue Jays would be playing in Pittsburgh, so I thought it would be a good idea to feed my fandom and be able to cover the Blue Jays at the same time. But beginning with the offseason and the complete failure to address the glaring pitching needs. Yes, they signed Marcus Semien. That money could have gone to pitching and bolstering the bullpen. And Kevin Biggio wouldn't be looking around, wondering what hit him. He would still potentially be the Kevin Biggio we all thought he could be and playing a fine defensive second base. They didn't react to injuries. They didn't react to the bullpen imploding in May. And they lost so much ground no matter how terrific that run was. And when they got back to Rogers Center, it was magic every night for the Blue Jays. None of that success. The great trade, Barrios, getting him from the Twins. Great moment. None of that erased all the bad feelings and bad seeds that were planted in 2021 going into the season. I remember the recap of the season at the end on the podcast, Shaun, jokingly saying, "Well, Steve, what do you think?" And he goes, and I swear, if you say I told you so, you're out of here. I was too brokenhearted and upset and angry to say I told you so, because I didn't want to be right. Last year was really, really tough, which makes the early successes and the great offseason that much sweeter this year. But I'm never going to forget what happened in 2021. The biggest heartbreak for any Blue Jays fan that was alive at the time was 1987. when they led the AL East for most of the year, went into the final week of the season with a 3.5 game lead, and proceeded to lose the next 7 games and see the Tigers, then the Blue Jays' most bitter and intense rival, win the AL East. And Sparky Anderson, God, that was tough. And so many bad things happened. Tony Fernandez, had a displaced fracture of his elbow after being taken out by an illegal hard slide by Bill Madlock. Ernie Witt broke a couple of ribs trying to break up a double play. Jimmy Williams, his name should be stricken from the books. Nowhere in Canada should the words Jimmy Williams be allowed to be uttered. And everybody says, oh, he was such a great strategist. He was awful, just god-awful in 87. And then that last week, everything that he tried to do was wrong, including, for some reason, not pitching his all-star closer, Tom Henke, in any of those 7 losses. Despite extra inning games, he never pitched again after giving up a home run to Kirk Gibson the weekend before. 87, they were 96 and 66, still lost the AL East, and it was just, I don't cry easily, but I was fighting it back watching that game on American television. It was a network game on Sunday. It was just devastating. And someday I'll do an entire show, I think, about that 87 collapse in the 87 season. And try not to stumble or spit out the words Jimmy Williams. Well, once again, I rambled on too long, so we're going to have to put off the Buck Martinez Blue Jays bedtime story off for another week. We certainly, here at Chase from the Couch, all join with everybody out there wishing Buck nothing but the best and praying that he does beat this opponent of cancer that he has. Thank you for tuning in for another On Fek Circle. We're here every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. YouTube channel, Facebook, and on Twitter. Sunny Side of the Dome is Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully, Karen Suter can be activated off the IL for her show this week, but if not, go back and check the archives on the YouTube channel, her terrific show, and our podcast every Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, hosted by our editor, Shaun Doyle. This coming week, Ryan Mueller will be on to talk about the Blue Jays minor league system. I'm the Fekless Wonder, Steve Fek. As always, thanks for being part of the show. Let's keep the conversation going throughout the week, and I'll see you next Tuesday.